Welcome to the League of Women Voters of Chicago's Zooming with the Alderman series of interviews. My name is Debra Silverstein, and just a few words about the League. We were founded 101 years ago right here in Chicago. The League is a nonpartisan political organization which encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in government. We work to increase understanding of major public policy issues. We hope to influence public policy through education and advocacy. And the Chicago League is one of hundreds of local leagues all across the country. These interviews that we've been doing with the aldermen are part of our efforts to educate people about those who represent us in setting the policies and ordinances that govern us here in Chicago. So we are very honored today to have as our guest Alderperson Debra Silverstein, and she is from the 50th Ward. So we welcome you, Alderperson Silverstein, and we sincerely appreciate you taking the time to be with us. Before we get going, I'd like everybody to know that this is a Zoom session and it is being recorded and will be available for viewing after today on the League's website. And we will be sending you, Alderperson Silverstein, and everyone who registered for this program who is not a member of the League, a link to the video when it becomes available. Also, everyone should know that we have provided the alderperson with a copy of the questions I'll be asking ahead of time. And before starting the questions, we would like to show everyone a map of the 50 wards in Chicago, and I want to say they are the current wards. And then that will be followed by a spotlight on the actual 50th ward. So if you can see, there should be a cursor making a circle around the 50th ward. And if we could now look at the 50th ward, there it is. And that, okay, we're all set there. Thank you. And I would like to continue. If you can take the map off, please. And there it goes. Thank you. And so now I would like to once again thank you and welcome Alderperson Silverstein to Zooming with the Alderpersons.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. And thank you for all you do.
We have been striving to reach out to all of the alderpersons, and so we're just thrilled that you were able to make it. So the first thing I would really like to ask you, based on the fact that we just showed the maps, is if you could please basically describe your ward. Where is it and what are the main boundaries? Most importantly, what neighborhoods does it include? And the type of ward you have, is it mostly residential or commercial, etc.? So please tell us about the 50th ward.
So my ward is on the Chicago's far north side. We border Evanston, Skokie, and Lincolnwood on the north and west sides. My most northern border is Howard, and the southern border is Peterson, and to the west is Kedzie, roughly, and to the east is Peterson. And right at the southwest corner, to the east is Ridge, and right on the southwest corner of the ward is what we call Peterson Park. It kind of juts out a little. The borders are Devon to Peterson and Ridgeway to the North Shore Channel. And then if you continue down east on Peterson to California, you'll see that it kind of juts up to Granville, and then Granville goes east almost to Ridge. And that's pretty much our ward boundaries. Back in the day, this neighborhood was called West Rogers Park, and there's a lot of us that still do call it West Rogers Park, although more and more people now are calling it Westridge. And
Westridge.
Westridge, yes.
I grew up with West Rogers Park.
So did I. this is an extremely diverse ward. It is one of the North Side's few minority majority wards. There are so many different religions, races, and ethnicities. We have a very large Orthodox Jewish community. We have an Indian community, a Pakistani community, a Croatian community, a Rohingya community, an Afghan community, a Bangladesh community. We have lots of public schools, and in each schools here we have 30 plus languages in
Wow.
the ward, and it is so diverse. But I think that the diversity really makes us unique, and it makes it special, and we all get along. And I am truly honored to be able to represent such a wonderful neighborhood. It's a great place to raise your kids. You had asked about, is it a what types of people live here and the makeup of the ward. It is a mix of residential and commercial.
Mhm.
We have a bungalow belt here, which is the very old and beautiful, beautiful homes. Lots of single family homes, but yet we also have condos, some apartment buildings, and some 2 and 3 flats. And our most famous street here is Devon Avenue.
Mhm.
I'm sure you've been on Devon.
Yeah.
That really reflects the diversity of this ward. It is a long stretch. If people are listening and have not been to Devon, I really recommend that you put that on your list of things to do and to see. It's an avenue of mom and pop businesses, specialty stores. We have jewelry,
Restaurants.
yes, restaurants, grocery stores, clothing stores, just really reflects the diversity. And it's so busy. It actually attracts people from the entire Midwest to come and shop on Devon Avenue. And I'm really proud of it.
I actually remember growing up that my parents used to take us to Devon Avenue to experience it and say, this is the United Nations on a street.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
So that's really quite fun.
Yes.
And based on the wide diversity of your ward, what are the key issues that the people face in your ward?
So I think that I'm sure you've had a lot of interviews with a lot of aldermen, and I'm sure the top things I would have to say I would have to guess on almost every alderman would be public safety. I hear about that all the time. We all know that there's not enough police these days. Crime is out of control. I have the bulk of the 50th ward is the 24th district. I do have a little bit of the 17th district in that Peterson Park area that we talked about earlier. And given the limited staffing, they are actually doing a great job. I think the issue that affects us, given that diversity, is that we are targets for hate crime. And if you'll remember on the news at the beginning of the year, we actually had an anti-Semitic hate crime here. It happened on a Saturday morning where on the west end of the ward where somebody smashed in the windows of one of the synagogues. And then he proceeded to come down Devon Avenue and he smashed the windows of 2 kosher Jewish stores. And, we thought maybe that was the end of it. But then on Sunday, he came back and he smashed in the windows of another synagogue and then drew swastikas on a synagogue and a Jewish school in the neighborhood. And our community was just beside themselves. They were very concerned, very upset. The mayor came out and along with the police commander, and we met with the clergy and updated everybody as to what the police were doing to try to get this person apprehended. And actually within 24 hours, they did have him, which was great. And the next day we had the police superintendent come out and he announced that several hate crime charges were charged against him. And it's scary. At that time, it was the whole area had reporters and police and TV cameras out. And a question that came up a lot to me was, is your community concerned and are they on alert? And my answer to them was, we are always on alert. Whether it be a synagogue, whether it be a mosque, whether it be a temple, we always have our guard up. And, 11 years ago, when I first became alderman, nobody even had a plan as to how to protect themselves. And now we have, the 24th district has established a place of worship safety advisory team, where we have officers going into places of worship, going into our schools, talking to constituents, talking to members of the congregations about how to protect themselves in case of a terrorist attack. They walk through the buildings. They have taught people about a greeter program, where you either have someone from the congregation standing outside or a security guard, checking to make sure that that person belongs into the congregation before they open the doors. And it's sad that the world is like this, but it's unfortunately necessary now. And that's a very big concern. I mean, we have had carjackings here too. And we have crimes of opportunity. And what I do is I have a newsletter that goes out at least once a week. And what I like to do is stress, if you see something, say something. Even if you're not sure if it's an emergency, just pick up the phone and call 911. And we've had people call me up and say things are happening, and I'll call the police. And they'll say, well, nobody's called, or we've only had one call for service. And if we don't notify the police that something strange is going on, they're not going to know. And I also, like to stress, let's partner with the police. When we have people walking down the street and trying to get into your cars, make sure your car doors are locked. Make sure that your garage doors are down. Let's take the simple steps together as a community and partner with the police to try to keep the crime down.
Absolutely.
Another area of concern or of issue that I'm focusing on is commercial development. When I first became alderman, the first thing I did was a Devon Avenue streetscape. We talked about all those wonderful restaurants. So now we have wider sidewalks so that these restaurants have the opportunity to do outdoor cafes. We have new lighting. We cleaned the whole avenue up. We have flowers. We have trees. We made it safer for the pedestrians to cross. We have bump outs and crosswalks. And that's been wonderful. I was able to get funding for a brand new library. Our old library was run down and very heavily used, and this was under Mayor Rahm Emanuel, where he had a competition of our top architects in the city. And so we have a great state-of-the-art new library, and we hired a local artist that created this beautiful mural that really reflects the old 50th Ward and the new 50th Ward, and it's absolutely beautiful. And that's also something, when you're out here in the 50th Ward, to put on your list to go and see.
Okay. That's great.
And what I'm concentrating on right now is Western Avenue, our other arterial streets, and Chewy and Pratt. The Devon Avenue streetscape was paid for by TIF money, and we do have some TIFs on Western Avenue and Chewy, but not nearly the amount of money that's needed for a streetscape. So I am applying for grants to the state to get some money for infrastructure work. I have enlisted the Department of Planning and Development and we're right in the middle of a Western Avenue study. And I'm really excited about it. We're at the point now where we want to go out to developers and bring them in and see what it looks like and try to get them interested to kind of really give Western Avenue a facelift. Western Avenue isn't a pedestrian friendly street. It's a wide street, but we still want to make it a family friendly street. And I'm looking forward to making some real progress with that in the near future. And then one of the other things that also, is a concern is because we are so diverse, our neighborhood has specific needs. So the Orthodox community has some restrictions on the Sabbath, on Saturdays, and on their holidays. And I have to talk to the police. They don't always walk around with their phones on. And so I have to make sure that the police have special attention on the holidays and on Sabbath. And sometimes, we have to coordinate the street sweeping and the tree trimming, and we need to make sure that they're going in these neighborhoods and people are able to move their cars. So it's a constant coordination. And then with the Muslim community, on Fridays is their big prayer day. So we don't want the streets, not able to park near the mosques on Fridays. And they have Ramadan, and when they break their fast for that whole month, they have big meals and they need to make sure that their garbage is picked up. So it's a constant coordination between the various departments just to make sure things run smoothly and people feel comfortable living here.
Those are really unique situations that you do deal with there. So that's truly interesting. I am wondering, the 50th ward with the new map, has that changed very much?
It has changed slightly. I had over 5,000 people, unfortunately, that my ward had to get smaller. And so we did have to make some changes, but I'm happy that, the diversity percentages are still there and that the communities are still there. And I'm very happy about that.
Good. Okay. So you just mentioned that you've been on city council for quite a while, but the question is, why did you decide to run again in 2019? And we also wonder whether you have any other employment while you're doing this.
So I ran the first time for alderman in 2011, and I ran against Alderman Bernard Stone, who was the alderman there for close to 40 years. Now, Alderman Stone was a great alderman, but as time went on, I feel like he did become a little bit too comfortable. And what I was hearing was constituent services really had declined. And I have been living in the ward for a long time. I have 4 children and I raised my children here. I've living here now for over 35 years, and I care deeply about the community and I really wanted to give back. And so I decided to run. And I'm happy that once I won, we were able to do that Devon Avenue streetscape. We were able to get that new library. I was able to get 2 annexes to our public schools. Rogers School and Decatur got $20 million annexes.
Wow.
And Armstrong School and Stone School and Booth School got new play areas. And I love being with my constituents. I love helping people. And I feel like I still have a lot more to do. And so I am planning to continue to run, and I am hoping that I'm going to be able to continue to make improvements for this neighborhood.
And do you currently have any other employment in addition to your service to the council?
Being an alderman is definitely a lot of work. I am a certified public accountant as well, and before I became alderman, was doing a lot of tax work. So still do a little bit of tax work, especially around April 15th, just to kind of keep up with the new tax laws and keep my head in the game.
Got it. So moving on, you are the vice chair of the Budget and Government Operations Committee, and as an accountant, that definitely tracks. Besides reviewing the proposed city budget each fall, what does this committee do during the rest of the year?
Okay, so I'm just going to take us through a little bit of what the budget committee does during budget season. As you said, it's in the fall, usually September, October time. And it's a very, very very busy time, and the budget committee does obviously, decides the budget for the next year. And what happens during those 2 weeks is that every single city department comes in front of the alderman and talks to us about what they did last year, what their budget's going to be going forward, what their plans are going forward for the next year. And they are truly grilled by the alderman. Each alderman gets initially about 10 minutes to ask questions. And then if they're not done with their questions, then they get a round 2 and possibly a round 3. And the committee starts usually at 9 o'clock in the morning and can run into the evening. And I first want to commend the chairwoman, Pat Dow, for doing an absolutely excellent job. And it's really, really a hard, stressful time to get that budget passed. And so that's really the bulk of the budget committee, but we do meet every month. There's always amendments to the appropriation ordinance. There's always things that affect the budget, that change the budget, that requires us to vote on it. And that's what we do monthly before city council.
Got it. And thank you for all that you're doing there. So personally, what changes would you like to see made regarding the operations of the council?
You have a lot of really good questions, just by the way.
Thank you.
There's a couple of things. We have a lot of committees, and I think that we can still be very efficient and get the job done with fewer committees. I think that would save on the budget side of things. And I think there's definitely a way to consolidate the number of committees. I am all about transparency. And sometimes we get to committee and right then and there we're handed a substitute ordinance that we hadn't seen before. Or sometimes we get them, a couple days beforehand and really haven't had a chance to review them. And sometimes the ordinances are thick. And a lot of times when that happens, we do ask the chairperson to hold it or ask for briefings or, give us some more time so that we can get our questions answered and review everything thoroughly. And sometimes we can, and sometimes we can't. And I definitely would like to see that the sometimes we can being more often and having that time to review it. I think that's really important. I'm sure you know that now we've gone to e-voting. And I actually really like that. So far, we're still working on there's still some kinks that we're working out. But, what I've been told is people that are viewing, online is before we had this and a roll call was being done, you can't even sometimes hear what how your alderman is voting. And so at least now you have the board up and everybody can see how their alderman is voting and how other aldermen are voting. And I think that's a good thing. What I'd like to see is them to move a little bit further. Whenever an alderman wants to be acknowledged or, to say something, they still have to kind of raise their hand. And for the mayor or the corporation council to see them, I'm in 50. So before COVID, I was all the way in the corner. So sometimes I really had to wave. So I would like to see like just a button to push so that they can, have it easier to find the alderman and acknowledge them and ask them to speak.
That seems like something that could potentially be a simple fix.
And I think it's coming.
Okay.
So.
And regarding the electronic voting, I'm always looking for some silver linings to COVID, and that was one of them.
Right.
So, that was good.
Yes.
So, you mentioned that there are too many committees. How many committees do you serve on?
Oh boy, I serve on a lot. I serve on finance, budget, ethics, special events, licensing, education. I think there's a few more that I can't think of off the top of my head.
That's 6 right there.
Right. Yes.
So it is a lot to
It is a lot.
be able to pay attention to all of those different committees.
Yes, yes.
So, okay. And next, I'd like to ask, what are a few of the actions by the city to reduce gun violence that you think have actually been effective or when, will be effective? I'm just curious, we do have things in place in Chicago. Are they working?
Okay, so the first thing I want to say about this is that I'm going to give you some statistics. Last year in Chicago, there were 747 people who lost their lives to shootings. And as of May, there have been 212 mass shootings across the nation. And that was May, and now those numbers have gone even higher. And we definitely need more sensible gun laws. A lot of those are done at the federal and state level. Yesterday, the House voted to raise the age to buy semi-automatic weapons from 18 to 21, but we have to get it through the Senate. And I am sure there's going to be a lot of pushback for that, and that's very frustrating. And we just have to keep lobbying and, as an elected official, be a representative and make our voices heard that this is really, really something that needs to be done. Like you said, Illinois has some good gun laws, but it's not stopping people from going to Indiana and Wisconsin, to buy a gun. And that's a real problem. Besides the fact that we need more police. And what I'm finding now, or realizing now, is that a lot of the crimes are being done by the juveniles, by these young kids. And now I'm not looking to lock juveniles up. I'm definitely not saying that. But I do think that there should be some consequences if they're going to commit a crime using a gun. They should never have access to a gun. And what's happening is that the gang members know that these juveniles have lighter penalties. And so they're recruiting them to come and to commit these crimes. And that really has to stop. And I think we in the city can do that by making sure that they get access to excellent education, that they get access to the social workers if they need social workers, that we provide enough after school activities for them and that jobs for them and summer jobs for them, and keep them from ending up on the streets.
Well, that basically answers my next question regarding what the city can do, because unfortunately we are all at the mercy of the federal government for real gun legislation.
Yes.
But in terms of the city, you did outline a couple of things right there. Is there anything else that you feel the city could actually do?
I just think that we need to keep lobbying our state and federal representatives and keep our voices heard.
The voices are being heard right now in Washington, D.C.
Yes.
The question is, are people listening?
I know.
So, okay, moving on. League members have observed that the committees and then the council regularly pass agenda items for which the actual contents and text of what is being approved are not available to the public to see until days after the meeting, which is honestly a very big concern for the League of Women Voters, because that is something we want to observe and know what's happening. So this is because of the provision in Rule 41 that allows the mayor and city departments to present direct introduction of items to the committee. There is no number assigned and the text is not posted on the Register, which is something that we check regularly. So would you support requiring that any such direct introduction items and their texts be made available with an assigned number to the public no later than 2 business days prior to the meeting?
Yes, I would. I would absolutely support that. And I think we spoke about that a little bit earlier, how we don't often see that until right before committee. And there definitely needs to be more transparency. And, I personally like public feedback. I want my constituents to have access to what we're voting on, because their feedback to me helps me in my decision as to which way to vote, or if there's something that needs to be tweaked. I definitely like to hear back from them. So yes, I would definitely support that.
And we thank you for that. I hope more people do. Currently, thinking now about elections, and we are in election
Mhm.
season, noting that the city elections are not until February. But currently, when one candidate for mayor or alderperson does not receive 50% of plus one vote in the February election, the top two vote getters are on the ballot in a runoff election in April. What is your view and opinion about using ranked choice voting in February to determine the winner in lieu of a runoff, such as they did in New York City last year?
So I would consider it, but there's a couple of buts here. We definitely need a lot of public education before anything changes, and I'm not sure that I would be in favor of it in this, in the upcoming elections.
Mhm,
Um, I think that the pros are that it would definitely save money. It's going to save money both with the Board of Elections and hiring judges and all the time that is involved with running elections. It'll save money for the candidates. The candidates have to pay for all of their, for their elections, and they're getting their money from campaign contributions from the taxpayers.
mhm,
So I definitely see that as a way to save money. But I also see that it could be very confusing initially, and
mhm.
especially for our senior voters. And what I don't want is for people to be turned off and not vote, because I think we really need to concentrate still on getting a greater voter turnout.
Mhm.
And I just don't want anything to avoid that drop off in elections. So
Okay,
definitely open to learning more about it and seeing how it's working. But I think we have to, you know, just be very careful about how we implement that.
that makes sense. Thank you. All right. So if the League of Women Voters of Chicago wanted to support one of your initiatives, what steps would you recommend that we take in order to help you? And for example, asking our members to call or write their alderperson and or sending written comments from the league to the appropriate committees or anything else we can do to support your initiative.
I would actually love that. So that would be great. Um, in general, I have an open door policy, and my residents come in and out of my office all the time. I try to be very accessible to everybody, and welcome meetings with anybody, and definitely would welcome support, especially um, on an initiative that I have. What I would encourage you to do also is to, reach out to my other colleagues,
Mhm.
because clearly it needs to be voted on. And so we need to gain as much support as possible. So I would encourage you to do that, to speak to my community or to communities about it. I regularly hold public meetings, so would be happy to have you involved in any kind of public meeting that I have, or to reach out as I do regularly to community leaders and faith leaders, and would definitely love support.
Do you have any one or two specific initiatives that it would be helpful to have our support on now?
Um, I think um, right now, I don't right now, but I will definitely keep you posted.
Okay, well, then that leads us to our last question, and that is, what are several things you would like to get done or at least started during the remainder of your term, which will end in 2023?
So I would like to keep pushing along with the economic development on Western and Tui. So I want to get that Western Avenue study completed. Still, pushing for state funding and working with the Department of Planning and Development. I've also really care a lot. We didn't talk about parks at all,
Mhm.
but there is one park in my ward, Indian Boundary Park, that has a very unique, iconic playground. I think there's only 2 or 3 in the entire city, and they're wooden structures. And what's happening is that it's starting to fall apart, that the kids are getting splinters and the wood is breaking.
Oh.
And I have been knocking on the park district's door for a while, trying to get funding so that we can replace it. I want it to look similar to what it looks like now. So I don't just want a regular playground there. So I'm hoping that this year or next year, we're going to be able to get the funding to take care of that. I'm constantly going out and cleaning up and asking for volunteers to clean and improve our parks. So we'll continue with that. I'm in the process of setting up a youth advisory council. So I'm hoping that that's going to take off soon. And I don't know if you've heard that the YMCA closed its doors in our neighborhood. And that was really, really disappointing for us. And I'm actually working with the YMCA themselves, and there's a whole big coalition that is formed. And the 2 of them are now working together. And we are trying to see if there's a way we could get that YMCA back open. That would be great for the community.
That
So
sounds
those
wonderful.
are some of the things that I'm still trying to get through.
On your youth advisory council, I'm
Mhm.
curious as to what are the ages that work for a youth advisory council, and how do you feel that they will be able to participate?
So we're really taking, high schoolers,
Mhm.
working with some people that really want to get involved in different events, and also, talking to them about safety and different ways that they can get involved in the community, and actually getting our youngsters involved in government. I think that's really important, that we have young leaders that are there to take over and to care so much about our community, just like I do.
That seems like a lovely place to end. So, Alderperson Silverstein, we thank you so very much for your time and for all that you're doing right now in the council. We truly do.
And
And I'd like,
I thank you for everything that you guys are doing.
thank you. We try. I also wanted to remind everybody watching that a link to this program will be found on the Chicago League's website. And everyone who registered for today's program who is not a league member will receive an email with the link, along with an invitation to join the league, as well as to sign up for notices of future programs. Next week, again on Thursday, June 23 at 6 p.m., we hope you will register and join us for Zooming with the Alderman program featuring Alderman Harry Osterman of the 48th Ward. So we hope you will join us on all of our future Zooming events. They are all posted on the website. And the timing is such that I want to remind everybody to please vote now. Early voting, the primary is June 28th, and there is time to vote now and all the way through June 28th. So please vote. And Alderman Silverstein, thank you again. It was a pleasure to have you.
You're very welcome anytime.